Hey there neighbors, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Signature Mach series from Coleman's RV Air Conditioner Systems. If you are in need of a replacement air conditioning system for your RV, then look no further than Coleman-Mach. They have been in the business since 1967, so they have over 58 years of experience and innovation built into their AC systems. So that way you can make sure that each one of your camping trips is nice and enjoyable. So Coleman-Mach is going to offer a variety of different kits and different BTU ratings, colors. There's a bunch of different options when it comes to picking out the right one for your specific trailer. So with ours today, this is a ducted system, so we want to make sure that we're getting the correct air distribution box to go along with that, because we need to be able to force that air through all those ducts, and we don't want to have that just blowing out into the main area, which is our kitchen in most cases. But let's get back to the different options. So starting out color-wise, we have black or white, and then there's going to be a difference between those. There's a textured and then also a gloss finish that's going to go with this. So you can match that up to the aesthetics of your trailer, with everything else on the trailer being black up on the roof. Textured black just kind of made the most sense and was the best option for us today. Along with that, there is also a 15,000 BTU unit, which is the Mach 15. If you have a unit where it's a 13.5 and you're swapping over to a new one, you could go with the Mach 3, but you can also upgrade a little bit more to that 15, so that way you get a little bit more efficiency out of it and it can cool your trailer down a little bit quicker. So one other thing I highly recommend picking up along with your AC system is going to be a soft start. Coleman-Mach has one specifically designed for their units that's going to bolt right up on to the unit itself. Now you can't see it because it is hidden inside of our unit here under our shroud, but it is a pretty simple process. The install really didn't take us too much time, and they have some very clear instructions on how to get that installed. That is going to be a power source that's going to sit there, and it's going to get energized and hold some power inside of it, so that way when you actually go to start up your unit, you're not having this huge draw on the system itself. So that way it can start a little bit easier, not run as hard, and hopefully give you a little bit more of a lifespan with your unit. Now that we've talked a little bit more about the kits, why don't we go inside and we can show you exactly which air distribution box we have, how it functions, and then also how the thermostat functions as well. So for our air distribution box, since this is a ducted system, there isn't really going to be much to it. We have two vents that we have on the sides here, so that's going to blow air front and back here, and those can easily just be closed up by pressing the little lever over, and once those are closed, that's not going to force all of the air up through our ductwork. So say you're just with yourself, with either by yourself or with your significant other, and you're up in the master bedroom, you're not really in the kitchen area, you don't really need these vents to be open. You want that air kind of forced over to where you're actually going to be at. So easily just close that vent. Then maybe if you have someone else with you and they're sleeping out on the kitchenette bed, you open those back up, and now they can get a little bit of air too. But luckily with our trailer today, it does seem like there is quite a bit of ductwork ran through this, even though it is a little bit smaller. So you should have really good airflow through all this. Other thing with this too is going to be just the filter itself. So it is a tool-free design. You can easily press on these two tabs, pull it out, and then our filter is just sitting right here. And occasionally you'll want to take this out, just rinse it off, and then let it air dry, and you can get any kind of dust build up out of there, so that way you're breathing some nice clean air. But that's really going to do it for the air distribution box, because like I said, there really isn't much to it since this is a ducted system. Now our thermostat's going to be super simple to actually use here, so nice bright LED screen here, and we have just this little knob, and this is going to spin for selecting our temperature settings and then also through our modes. If we press on it, that's going to get us into our first setting here, and that's the mode. So we can switch them off to cool, to heat, and cool. On the cool plus heat, that is going to switch from either cold or hot up to that within a 2-degree difference. So say this gets to 72, then the AC should kick on, cool it back down to 70. Now if it drops down to 68, it's going to heat up, so it's going to turn on that furnace again and heat it back up to 70. Now there is a 15-minute delay between the two, so if you're having, you realistically shouldn't have that huge of a temperature transition inside your camper, but it won't want to cool and then immediately heat. You don't really want to have that going back and forth constantly, because then it's just going to keep running itself. But now we got both of them set to off. The other thing here is also our fan, so we can set our fan high, low, And then if you have on like the cool setting, switch to that, it's going to automatically have an auto high or auto low set for you. But say it's nice and cool in the camper already and you only want the fan on, you can also just have that fan running. Now there is one other setting on here, so if we go back to our mode and we switch over, go past cool and heat, there's going to be dry cool. Now that's still going to be cooling, but it's going to be at a much reduced energy usage. So we're going to have our fan on low, we're going to also have the compressor on low, so it's not going to draw as much. So that's for your dry camping. So that way if you're out there, you're not pulling as much out of your inverter or your generator setup, whatever you're doing to actually power the system, because this is going to need 110 service. So that'll just help you kind of back off of that full draw, so that way you're not drawing as much and potentially running down your batteries if you are that person that is using an inverter, or maybe you're needing a little bit less of a load on that generator so you can run a couple other appliances in your trailer at the same time. So to start off our install, we've already removed our AC unit. So our neighbor previously had already ordered a different AC unit, and we realized it's just not going to be the right fit for this trailer. So what's going to happen is we're swapping over to a new one, but because of that we lost a little bit of our footage here with the removal. Now that's not super important, just because each AC unit's going to be a little bit different. So the way that you remove it could be totally different than the way that I had to remove the one we previously had here. But for the most part, it's going to be coming in here, pulling down that plastic cover over your air distribution box, taking out the 4 bolts that mount the metal bracket to the rooftop unit and actually holds that rooftop unit down. And then it's going to be figuring out your wiring. So I like to take pictures of anything that I'm going to disconnect before I disconnect it. So like this was our thermostat wiring. I took a picture of what each one of those wires was doing. Now in our case, it's not going to matter as much, just because they're all these 4 wires here are running over to our thermostat. These 2 are our furnace. These are the only 2 that really matter for us, just because we need to make sure that we are putting our power and ground to our furnace into the right part on our thermostat. Now for these other 4, it's not going to matter, because if we look over at our thermostat, we can put those to any function we want essentially. So just making sure that we maintain that our furnace wires are separate. So now with everything out of the way with our old system, our first step is going to be getting our rooftop unit up in place, getting it centered on our opening here, and then from there we can grab our metal framing for our air distribution box, get that bolted up, run our 4 bolts through, and then we can start working on some of the wiring. Now with the specific system that we're going to today, this is a Coleman, so this isn't going to have all of the wiring down here. Some of the wiring is going to need to be done up top, so once we get it up there, we will be opening up the shroud and getting in there and installing the control box, which is this guy right here. And then we'll also be tapping in a couple other things as well while we're up on that roof. So at this point, this is where you're definitely going to want to have a bunch of friends to help you out, and a couple of ladders, or if you have access to a forklift or some kind of other heavy equipment that can actually get this up onto the roof, it's going to make it a whole lot easier for you. All right, we are up on top of the roof now, and I've got my controller, and I've got a few pieces of hardware here. There's going to be some little clips that look like this in your kit, and those are going to be what this kind of helps hold that up once we drill this through. And then there's also a little cable tie thing here that's going to help support our cable and prevent it from backing out. That's going to go on the bottom here where our 110 volt connections are made, and then wire nuts, which are included in your kit, and then just the 2 screws to actually mount it up. Now to mount it, we are going to need to get inside of our unit here, so I'm going to take out the top screws here. Now you could pop each one of the little pins or plastic clips here out and just only remove the front, but it's 4 screws to remove the whole thing, so I'm just going to get these top 2 out and then the 2 in the back. Those 4 removed, and it might be easier to kind of shift it from the top here. There we go. Pull our cover off, set that aside, and now we're going to get inside of here. So we're going to have, it's like at least 2 screws per side, 3 screws per side, maybe a 4th here hidden behind this tape, because we're going to have to kind of lift this up and peel it back. Now it will kind of bend here at each crease, So I'm not going to take out too many screws if I don't have to. I'm going to start up here and kind of work my way down and see what allows me to get this to open. Now we can pull down our cover. You can see these 2 screws that were left in there. That's probably going to be for our controller. Yep, plenty of space. Marks it out. We have our wiring going down. Got our plug coming out right where our port's going to be for that. So right here is your 9-pin plug. This just easily clips right into that, and it's only going to go one way. You can see it's kind of rounded on one end and boxed out on the other, so it only fits one way, like I said. All right, so now we know that that's going to sit there. We're going to pull this back off. On the back side, you got a little tab you can pull down, pop this box cover off, and that's going to have our 110 wiring. Black's going to be power, white's going to be neutral, and then green is our ground. All right, now they give you wire nuts, but I would definitely recommend also going over it with some electrical tape, so grab some of that as well. We'll take our 110 wiring from below, and obviously make sure that you are disconnected from shore power. We'll our casing. All right, take that little black retention clip. We're going to pop that in. Take our wiring from our trailer side. We'll push that through. I'll pull a little bit more in there. And then we can make our connections. Give them a good yank, make sure they're not going to slip out. And then we'll come back with our electrical tape. And then we'll just repeat that for our power and neutral. All right, then once we have that in place, we're going to put our cover back on. Make sure that clips in nice and tight. And then our controller is going to live right on here, just like we showed you a little bit ago. So get that lined up. And we have our retainer clips, these little metal guys. And you could back out the screw a little bit and then run it. Or if you sit here, you can kind of spin these down and get it nice and snug. All right, now we'll take our 9-pin plug. We're going to pop that on as well. Doesn't give you a super satisfying click, but it's on there. I can't pull it off. So at this point now, I'm going to put in the 20-ish screws I just removed to pop this cover off, and then the rest of the work we're going to do from down below. So at this point, we are going to pause from our AC install because we already have our cover off. It makes a lot more sense to get our soft start installed too. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire installation with this just because it is sold separately, but I definitely recommend checking out our install video for this. If you go to the product page, you can easily find it, and we can show you how to get it installed. Now, in your kit, you're going to have these long black screws. These are going to require 8mm head socket to actually bolt these up, and we're going to take our metal framing. That's going to pop right up into place, and we've got those 4 holes in each corner, and that's going to match up with our rooftop unit. So what we'll do is push these bolts up and get those started. I like to do one and then go across to the other side. Kind of help pull up your metal framing a little bit easier. And we can get our last 2 bolts in, and then we'll snug those down, and we'll come back. I'm going to be using a torque wrench that's designed for bikes. It's a very low torque setting, so this is something you probably won't have at home, but essentially what you're looking for in most cases is going to be, we're looking at this gasket right here, and they want that foam gasket to compress about halfway, so it should be about half of this size here once fully compressed down. All right, this is a bit of a long process with the torque wrench, because what I do is I cross over and kind of keep going evenly here, so that way we're getting nice even compression. I don't want to have one side pinch and then we go to tighten up another side and then it looses a different bolt. So kind of keep working your way around. All right, you can kind of see it's bulging right here on our gasket, showing that it's being tightened down. Just double checking, going back to each one, and making sure that each one is fully torqued down here. Now on the back of that controller, there were 2 ports, one for your thermostat wiring, and then there was those 2 spade terminals for the temperature probe here for our frost protection. So these are going to get plugged into those ports. We'll jam this little probe up into the evaporator coils, and that's going to be there. If it ever starts to freeze up, it's going to tell itself, hey, you're freezing up. It'll cut itself off. That way it doesn't freeze up, because if it does, you'll build up a whole bunch of ice up there. It'll freeze out the AC unit, and it's going to stop working. And then you're going to be without AC for a much longer time while you wait for it to thaw out. This is going to help prevent that from happening. So even though it may have to kind of scale back while you are using it, that's going to give you a little bit more time with it. Maybe you can get up there and figure out why all of a sudden it's just not really performing as well as it could. And then that's where you would see, hey, it's starting to freeze up. Maybe we have a leak. Maybe we have some condensation that's staying up inside the pan and not leaking out onto the roof. And then you can solve that issue, so that way you're not having any more issues or more expensive ones down the road. So with that being said, I'm going to take my thermostat wiring. I have wiring already ran through the wall for our previous thermostat. I've got 5 wires I can use. I've got red, yellow, blue, green, and brown. And for my thermostat wiring, I've got gray, green, yellow, and blue. So I'm going to match color for color. And then on the gray one, I'm just going to put that to brown. So included along with that is also going to be these smaller wire nuts. In this case, with the wire gauge being so small, it's not really the greatest with our butt connectors that we have today. So I am going to use the wire nuts, and I'm going to tape them too. So I have a little bit of extra protection, make sure these ain't going to come off. But I'm going to strip back the casing on these 4 wires. We'll get those wired together with the harness for our thermostat. Twist that up just a bit before I stick this on. Twist that, make sure it's nice and tight. Give it a little tug, make sure it's not going to pop off. Alright, now with all those connections made and secured with tape, we now have to secure also a power wire over to our thermostat. So that's not included with these 4 wires here. That's your ground, and then the other 3 wires are to energize each function, so your high and low fan functions, and then also the compressor. So we need to run a little jumper wire over to 12 volt power, which I already have marked here from the trailer side. And I'm just going to put on a butt connector for this one. And I'll tape over that as well, really make sure that that connection is nice and tight. But the other end of this we're going to bring over. And this is a crimp-on connector, so I'll loosen that up. Alright, unfortunately I wasn't able to reuse the crimp-on one, so we are using a wire nut. Get that nice and tight, and then we'll tape that up with some electrical tape as well. We'll get this one secured too, and then we can actually hook in our connector here. Alright, the last thing we need to do is add in a ground. So we have the ground that's on our blue wire coming from our connector on our wire harness. We've also got the blue running over to our thermostat. Well, now we need to actually hook that to a ground for our trailer, and luckily we've got one right here too. So what I'm going to do is I've already got a little jumper wire ready to go. I've got the end stripped. I'm going to just pop off the wire nut on my blue wire here. Get those all twisted together. Place our wire nut back on, and then I'm going to tape over these once we're done just to make sure they don't come loose. Do the same, and you can hear the furnace keeps kicking on and off. We don't have any gas though right now, so the fan is just going to want to blow, and then it'll shut itself off. That should be good. We just tape this up, and then we can close all this up after we get our connector installed. Alright, I've got this taped up. I went over it again too, just to kind of cover the whole assembly here, then we don't ever have to worry about it backing off. And up here we've got 4 prongs on this white connector. We're going to hook in our little red connector, and then we can grab that temperature probe, or freeze sensor, I should say. Now the spay terminals on that aren't going to matter polarity-wise. We're just going to pop those on, and then like I said, we will just put it up in there about halfway up. I like to kind of do it around the center. Just push it in. And then we can tuck our wiring up out of the way. Now with our wiring finished here, it's going to be getting our air distribution box all assembled. And this is going to be a few different parts. This piece right here is going to be a divider, and it's going to help keep our return from sucking in that cold air that it's blowing right back out. So this is going to live on this side of our little plastic framing here, and there's a little slot for it with more foam gasket in it, and there's going to be 4 screw holes. These ones right here are what we're going to go to, and these are going to match up right in the center of each side of our bracket here. So this should sit up just like so, with that little divider in there already. And that is going to fight you a little bit, but that's exactly what we want. We want this nice and sealed up. We don't want any air from our return, or we don't want to be sucking cold back into our unit. So like if we have air blowing out here, escaping from where it comes out, and it's getting into the sealing assembly here, it's just going to suck that cold air right back in it, and that's how you can end up freezing out your unit again. So making sure that you have that nice and tight and airtight is going to be the best way. I definitely recommend picking up some HVAC tape, and then you can also kind of seal it up a little bit better. I think once I get this in, the ductwork is so long here that I don't believe it's going to match up well. Yeah, so our bar is going to sit right about here. So we've got this much of our ductwork open. I'm going to have to seal across that, so that way we aren't mixing the two up here. So I'm going to do that first, and then we can get this in. All right, now we have our divider in place. I've also put some more HVAC tape over this too to kind of help seal this up a bit more. And we're at the point where we're ready to actually put up our air distribution box. So we're going to start with our smaller flat plastic piece here, and this is essentially our base that we're going to be building off of with our other components. And we've got our screws. You want to line them up, and you want to make sure that you have this cut out facing the flywheel where air is going to come out. We want to have that so that way we have air blowing out the vents, because this right here is going to be our outlet, both on this side and this side right here. So we want to get it into that channel. So I need to grab my drill, and then we can pop our first screw in. Make sure you have it lined up, because this is where that divider is going to sit. And then we can start shooting in the 4 screws that actually hold this up. And the divider is going to want to fight you. That's okay. We want that to be a real tight fit, so we don't want to allow air to escape and get mixed with the return. You might even want to kind of push up on it too, just a bit, and you might see some of these screws get a little bit more space. Next, we can pop our outer cover into place, and that's going to line up with the 4 mounting points that we have. Side to help fully hold that up. Now we take our filters, we'll pop those into place too. And those just have 2 little tabs, one on either side, to help hold that up. And then we have our actual grate, or grill. We'll pop that in. And we'll do the same thing with the other side. Well, that's going to do it for our look at Coleman-Mach's Signature Mach line of RV rooftop AC units. My name's Kevin, and if you still have some questions about what's going to be the right replacement for you, or you just have some installation questions, or even troubleshooting, please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department, and we'd be happy to help you out on your journey.